Welcome to College Cash Corner, the podcast that helps students navigate the world of personal finance. I'm your host, Tara, and I'm joined today by my co-hosts, Natalia and Victor. In this episode, we'll be discussing an important topic, credit cards, what they are, how they work, and how to pay them off. Listeners, if you are interested in information about credit scores, we have an entire College Cash Corner episode dedicated to them called Credit Crunch, Navigating Scores. Take a listen to it after this. So, how are you doing today, Victor and Natalia?
I'm good. I'm happy to be here. Thank you, Tara.
Yeah, I'm doing well. Good as well.
So let's start with a word or phrase association with credit cards. What are a couple of words or phrases that come to mind when you hear the word credit card?
Well, two words that come into my mind is borrowed money.
Yeah, I will say the same. Borrowing money, it can be dangerous. You need to be careful.
Okay. Some words or phrases that come to my mind is tool and could be dangerous. It sounds like there could be positive and negative feelings surrounding credit cards. Investopedia.com defines a credit card as a thin rectangular piece of plastic or metal issued by a bank or financial services company that allows cardholders to borrow funds with which to pay for goods and services with merchants that accept cards for payment. Credit cards impose the condition that cardholders pay back the borrowed money plus any applicable interest. So there's a key word in here, which both of you had mentioned, which is the word borrow. So essentially a credit card is a loan that you can carry around in your purse, your wallet, your pocket, or even on your phone, and then you can use it when you need it. Considering that we mentioned those phrases and words of dangerous, being careful, and it's borrowed money, why have credit cards at all then?
Well, when I have talked about this with my friends, there's like two opinions. One is that they start having credit cards because they need it. They needed to borrow money from a bank, and it was basically to pay their needs. And some others say that they started doing it to build their credit score, so in the future they can start making payments for a home or a car, and they are trying to keep their credit score as high as they can.
For me, people use a credit card to get a job, of course. Like one of my friends was trying to get a position for marketing management, but he needed a credit score to base him off. He's working on that, so that's why I think that a credit card's important.
Sounds like we agree that credit cards are important. They can be helpful. We have to be careful with that. Credit cards are often used to build credit history. They do come in handy if emergencies come up, and even if you have an emergency fund, you may not have enough in the emergency fund to cover the full expense. So a credit card could be kind of like the backup money for that. But the big thing is we have to be careful. I think the first step in being careful is to understand all of the ins and outs of using a credit card. There are some words that often come up when talking about credit cards that people should be aware of. So the first word is balance. You have a balance on a credit card. The balance is the total amount of money that is owed on the credit card at that time. Along with the word balance, there's the phrase carry a balance.
Yeah, so carry a balance means to own money. When you are carrying a balance on your credit card, this remaining amount incurs interest charges. These interest rates can be quite high, often being 20% or more. It's important to understand these rates and factor them into your financial decisions.
The nice thing is that if you're using the credit cards responsibly, you don't ever have to pay interest on the money that you borrow with this credit card. And we'll talk about that in just a moment. Then another word is interest, right? We just mentioned that the interest rate is often 20% or more. There's the annual percentage rate, or APR. That's the interest rate you'll be charged on any carryover balances. So if you carry a balance month to month, then that percentage starts to build on that. So not only are you going to have to pay back what you originally borrowed, but then some more There is a myth out there that if you don't carry a balance, then that affects your credit score in a negative way. And that's absolutely not true. You do not have to carry a balance to keep your credit score up.
For those of you wondering how much 20% is, I did the calculations. So if you had $1,000 in your balance and 20% was APR, that'll be $200. That's a lot of money.
And it is an annual percentage rate. If you carried $1,000 balance for a whole year, you would end up paying $1,200 back in order to pay off that borrowed amount. So we have balance, we have interest or APR. The other one is minimum payment. The minimum payment is the lowest amount of money that the credit card company is going to require you to pay when your bill comes due. Say your balance is $200. Your bill may say you could pay the full amount or you could just pay $25 this month. And if you pay that minimum balance, that $25, your credit score will stay in good standing through. What do you think about paying just the minimum payment on a credit card?
Well, I feel like no one wants to just pay the minimum. Well, I will say that it's never recommended to just do the minimum payment. If you are in that situation, it's understandable and it might be a short-term solution. But for the overall, you are just keeping yourself in that situation. So as long as you can pay more, you should be doing that and making that your priority.
I really have no issue with people paying with, minimum payments. People, are living like paycheck to paycheck, and I just researched that 58% of Americans live by that.
Mm-hmm.
So not many people could really pay the full amount ahead of time. I mean, as long as they're following the rules, which is paying the minimum payment on time, I really have no issue.
And that's a really good point, that if you're in the situation where you can't pay more than the minimum payment, then at least pay the minimum payment. Mm-hmm. But if you can pay more than the minimum payment, that's even better. And it's better because you'll end up in the long run paying less money for what you borrowed. So it's possible that some of our listeners may have credit card debt and are carrying a balance. If our listeners are looking to pay off their credit card debt, it is a high interest loan. Let's talk about strategies that they can do. The main two strategies that are out there are called the snowball method and avalanche method. Victor, you want to explain the snowball method of paying off credit card debt?
Yeah, for sure. The snowball method is basically the method of paying the lowest amount of debt you have first, and then the second lowest, and then the third, and then the fourth, and so on, until basically you are debt free. And the reason why people do this is because it helps them psychologically, because paying off the smallest debt will be like a satisfaction. So that's why the snowball effect's pretty effective when it comes to the psychology part of paying off debt.
If you compare this situation to a school situation, I would say that the snowball method is like when your professor gives you a bunch of homework and one big assignment. You need to write an essay. The snowball method is like doing those small homeworks before the big essay. So just to you to feel that you are accomplished all of that homeworks, and you feel better because you feel productive and you feel that you are doing those steps to get your grades better. And the other method is the avalanche. Avalanche method is does not matter how much money you own in the other credit cards. You will be paying first the card that has the highest interest. So just to go back to my example in school, by doing this, you will be approaching your essay and trying to write your essay first before your homeworks.
The essay is probably worth a whole lot more points than the homework assignment. So getting that out of the way, because that has the most points, your most points are done, and then you can go focus on the lesser points. Like Victor said, with looking at the psychology of paying off debt, making those quicker wins along the way, or the feeling of accomplishment and motivation to continue paying off debt, it really works. Whereas the avalanche has its own pros to it, because mathematically speaking, paying off the debt that has the highest interest rate actually works best when you look at the numbers. There's no right or wrong choice in which method to use. It's what you feel is going to work best for you. I also would like to point out that regardless of the method that you choose, you still need to make the minimum payments, because if you don't, your credit score will be affected by that. I'll just take the snowball method for an example. I have my card with the lowest balance. I'm putting extra, let's say the minimum payment is $25. I'm putting $50 towards that, and I'm going to pay it off as fast as I can. Meanwhile, I'm making the minimum payments on the other cards that I'm not super focused on yet. I'm making this $50 payment to this first card. Now, once that card is paid off, I've been making $50 payments to that card. I am in that habit. So when I move to my next card to pay off that balance, I'm going to be paying at least $50 towards that on top of the minimum payment of that second card. So because I've been making that payment on that minimum payment on the second card, now I can add another $50 to that minimum payment, and that'll help me pay that off. And then, so let's say the minimum payment on that second card was $25 plus that $50. That means I'm making $75 payments every month toward that second card. And if I have a third card, once that second card is paid off, I'm going to take that $75 I've been paying and add it to the minimum payment of that third card. And then that's how I'm going to pay off that last card faster as well. And the same works with the avalanche method.
So I have a question to ask. I heard
Sure.
this in online. Well, not really heard it, but I saw on TikTok. But basically, instead of following these two, the person, right, said that instead of following these methods, if you have a bunch of credit, like debt to owe, like let's say like more than 100K, the best method is to get a bankruptcy and then just start fresh. The thing I want to know is that would bankruptcy affect your credit score?
Absolutely.
So then that's a thing that the viewer should consider.
It's going to be something on your credit report for the next 7 to 10 years. Filing for bankruptcy is a really big deal because it doesn't just affect you now, but it's going to affect you for years to come.
So many people in the comments were like, yeah, right now, at the present, when you do it, you're relieved because you don't have to pay any debt. But later on, it's going to affect you.
The best practice is only spend on it what you know you can pay back at the end of the month, and pay for needs, because those are expenditures you're going to make anyway. And then when the credit card bill comes, you pay in full if possible, and pay it on time. If you do that, then you're never going to pay interest on it. Recently, I was reading an article about credit cards, and that in the credit card industry refers to people that don't carry a balance and therefore never pay any kind of interest. They refer to them as deadbeats because they are not making money off of those customers. So I don't know. That's one kind of deadbeat I'm happy to be.
I have some general recommendations.
Sure.
I feel like before getting this job, I didn't really understood what was the meaning of a credit card, what was the importance, what should I be aware of, and all of this. But prior to this job, I was working in another company where we were selling a product, and some people were not able to buy this product, but they really want to, and we suggest to get a credit or pay with their credit cards. It's always a sell strategy. But be very conscious that a credit card is a responsibility. Or there are tricks to make your life easier. Like if you decide to get a credit card, you can link your credit card with your checks account. So your credit card is paying, or your checks account is paying for your credit card. I have here that some students, they just use their credit card. They limit themselves by, or I will just use my credit card by paying junk food or something like that, or in specific situations. So, or just in an emergency, I will use my credit card. Things like that.
Yeah, I know. I know people who only use their credit card to pay for gas.
For gas, exactly.
And they know they're going to need to buy gas for their vehicle, and then then they know that they can pay that bill at the end of the month. After our conversation, it kind of sounds like credit cards can be a really useful tool, but we just need to make sure that we're understanding that fine print of the credit card that we chose to get. I would say if you're considering getting a credit card right now, your very first one, you look for a credit card that has no annual fee. Another option for getting a credit card is getting a secured credit card, which is basically a prepaid credit card. So you have to actually put money down. Your credit limit is based on the money that you put down, because that way, if you don't pay your credit card bill, they take your money. You also can start building your credit score with that. Thank you for joining us for this episode of College Cash Corner. Before we go, we'd like to remind MCC students that the financial literacy team is here to support you in increasing and sustaining your money know-how. Go to MCC's financial aid website. On the left side, click on financial literacy. There you can book an appointment to meet with any of us one-on-one, register an account with Cash Course for free, view upcoming workshops and events, learn about other financial resources available to you, like our podcast. Until then, stay mindful and make smart money choices. Take care.